Hello, everyone. My name is Liam Lonegan. I'm the artistic director of Egg and Spoon. I'm fortunate enough to be able to introduce you to our first ever roundtable at Egg and Spoon, which is a chance to dive into some discussion about our organization and its relationship to the larger art form and to our community. So I'm thrilled to be joined today by two very special guests, but they also happen to be two very generous and thoughtful board members on our board of trustees at Egg and Spoon too. So, and I'll have you introduce yourselves whenever you're ready.
Hey everybody, I'm Samantha Feroce. I'm the chair of the board. When I'm not having a great time with Egg and Spoon, I'm an attorney by day for the New York City government. I joined Egg and Spoon because I jumped at the opportunity to really put art in the front seat of my life again. I've been a musician since I was young, and as professionalism got in the way, it became really hard to make space in my life. And finding Egg and Spoon, having Liam presented it to me, it just was a beautiful opportunity to really come back to having art in my life in such a serious way. So I'm really excited to be here.
Awesome. Thanks for that.
I'm Veronica Brooks. By day, I work for a financial services firm, and I support the marketing division. And long story short, I just find ways to drive operational efficiency and drive savings for the organization. So I work in finance, and I joined Egg and Spoon as a trustee just recently. So it's been just a few months. But as soon as I learned about sort of the mission of the organization and the good work that was being done, I knew I needed to be a part of it. I've always loved theater. I think I've shared this with Liam and Sam that, I was 19 years old when I saw my first show in New York City, and I fell in love with just the art and the art of expression through the creative. And so I'm very passionate about the work that Egg and Spoon is doing to build community and to give voices to artists, all artists, especially diverse artists, to tell their stories.
And it's amazing because you came to theater a little bit later, right?
I did. So I have an interesting story because I grew up in South Central Los Angeles. So our idea of theater was, in the streets, with, drums that were made from sticks and cans, and sort of, we made our own music and we made our own shows, at each other's homes. And so I moved to college, right? You don't sort of lose that love of music. So I played instruments in school, but then you sort of moved to New York, right? And it's just, wow, I can see a show for as little as a few bucks, right? Or I can also, stand in line and see a Broadway show. And I remember seeing, my first Broadway show, but I'd also go to the Lower East Side, right? And kind of sneak into $5 shows or very affordable, off Broadway, right? Sort of that set the scene for my love of, this work now. This is kind of my way of giving back, right?
It's so funny when you describe that Los Angeles theater, that in a different way, that is rooted in community, altogether completely. And that is the goal when I picture, people in the street telling stories, or in our living rooms, or that kind of guerrilla theater is, similar to the block party or field day.
Exactly.
That the Egg and Spoon is all about.
And with the professionalism and legitimacy of a 501c3 nonprofit. I mean, not to bring the boring lawyer talk into it, but, you get the best of both worlds, that we are in a position where we actually can give back, where we can ferociously fundraise and make a very serious impact in communities, not just in a financial way, but in a way with our manpower and whatever resources we can drum up. So with that beautiful, grassroots sense of community we also have the benefit and the absolute privilege of being able to be in a position where we can do something with that, where we can make some real noise with it.
Absolutely. I echo that sentiment, the core of what you just said, because really Egg and Spoon is sort of serving as this beautiful bridge, right? So you're taking the stories that would historically have not been told, right? So that, I'm thinking of everything that I just described in my childhood, right? A lot of those stories are amazing stories but if you don't have a platform to develop them in a safe way that's heard and respected and cultivated, right, then those stories are lost. But Egg and Spoon sounds, is committed, right, to sort of being that bridge that to open it up to a broader audience, right? So that people who may have not, have seen themselves on stage are now seeing their own experiences on stage. But then someone who may have had a different experience is also now seeing another way that life is lived, right, through storytelling, which can be very inspiring and humbling. So that's a big part of, why I'm really aligned with the Egg and Spoon mission, and I'm excited at the work.
This is it. And what you just described too is the reason I do this as well. And it's about like the gathering of a community and the marriage of like the work that we do, or what I had just learned to do when I had graduated from school, the theater making part, and the marriage of that to an actual community that would benefit from it. But the reason, go ahead. No, Veronica, you had.
Yeah, you said the word community, and it was like, that is such a powerful word, because it's like feeling that you are part of something bigger than yourself, that through the arts, right, through you're understood. So whether you are the artist creating the art, or you're also the recipient and the audience member, and you're lucky enough to get into the room where it happens, right, and to see the show, it's like this, beautiful energy, right, of the one giving the art and the one receiving. And it's sort of built around sort of a mission, right, set by a community. So I think that word just really resonated with me.
One of the reasons why I wanted to have a discussion around expanding citizenship is that actually it's in our mission statement, which we adopted. I was just chatting with Sam just before this. In the depths of the pandemic, we readjusted our mission statement. We looked at the one we had, and it just felt like we had outgrown it, or it just wasn't as articulate anymore about what we were actually doing and what we were about. And that happens with every organization I knew, so it wasn't a failure of any kind. But this director named Che Yu wrote a letter of recommendation for our associate artistic director, Adam Coy, who had assisted him. And he had described Egg and Spoon in this letter of recommendation for Adam, and he said something about expanding a sense of citizenship. And Adam sent it to me, and I was addicted to it. But I didn't know, like, and I still, and this is why I kind of want to talk to both of you, I don't know, like, exactly what that means in practice, because it's a heavy word to carry, right? So I don't know what comes up for each of you when you first heard that, or when you hear it now about a theater organization wanting to expand citizenship.
Well, I vividly remember our conversations about changing our mission statement. Not many presidents of a nonprofit get, the board of a nonprofit get the privilege of like seeing through two different mission statements and only getting more and more aligned with it. So I remember vividly having this conversation, and you had brought it to us, and I'm pretty sure we had one of our pre-board meeting calls. And we're like, what are we feeling hung up about? Like, what's not really flowing? And we were caught up on this. What is citizenship? We were really caught up on what that means to us as artists. And we liked how it sounded. We liked what the sense of what we got out of it was. And then I'm pretty sure, and correct me if I'm wrong, that we kind of landed on the fact that it's so moldable that, the statement can really reflect more than one kind of definition of what citizenship is. And I'm kind of a cornball, so I looked up like the Merriam-Webster definition of citizenship, and I saw a lot of them that were really, like politic oriented, and I was like bored of those. And my favorite one that I saw was the definition of citizenship was qualities that a person is expected to have as a responsible member of a community. And that really kind of clicked in my brain that that's what we mean by citizenship. At least that's what I mean for Egg and Spoon when it comes to citizenship, is we are meant to use our privilege and our platform as a marker for the artistic society and community we want to create. So we can say, you know, we think a reasonable member of our community should be anti-racist. So that's what we're going to do. And we're going to make sure our staff has the training that they want to have. And we are going to, you know, adopt, you know, different rules and policies so that we can actually be doing what we say we want to do. And signaling to other organizations that they can and should be doing the same. Because in defining citizenship for us, we are showing what a reasonable member of our community is going to look like, and not saying we're the end all be all of what art should look like. You know, there is no such thing. But to be affiliated and to participate with Egg and Spoon, you should have our core values of what we're meaning being a citizen in our community is. So forcing us to kind of narrow our mission statement, force us to, me personally, to be like reinvigorated about what it means to be a part of Egg and Spoon.
Well,
sorry for that brain dump.
Girl, you better preach. That was great. Yes. Co-sign.
Thank you.
No, it's great.
Thank you.
So inspiring. Wow. I feel like I've been thinking a lot about this as well. So I feel like when you join as a trustee, there's sort of a sense of responsibility, right? Like what's going to be my role in this community and this theater collective. And, you know, I was thinking a lot about the sort of expanding citizenship concept. And Sarah could not have described it better. And it was like, I was thinking, you know, from the view of the artist and the audience. And, you know, I was, the phrase that came was, you know, for me was if you become a citizen and you're part of it, right? Like you matter. Your role as an artist, as a director, even if you're handling the finances and the admin, if you're an audience member, you matter because you're part of something bigger than yourself. And I see the art, the plays, the production, like the incubation workshops. I love this concept because as these stories are told, it's the energy and it's the fuel, it's the gasoline, right? That's gonna, you know, push the car forward, that actually, you know, kind of creates this space and it's the catalyst for expanding citizenship, right? Because it's the art that's going to touch hearts so that people feel connected to this community that's being built. And then artists are also even more inspired because they know that on the other side of all the hard work and the hard nights and you know, whether it's the editing process or casting, what the full end-to-end experience, that it's all worth at the end because the work that they're creating is for something, right? It's for this beautiful community, right, of citizens, but really building something greater than themselves. So,
you know, something that I've been wrestling with is watching a community see themselves in the work. So yes, like understand other stories and get to be exposed by other perspectives and other people and learning about issues and, you know, that are going on in the world. But I never realized the experience of seeing yourself as part of the, you know, this amazing thing happened just before the last main stage production we did, which was Zabel. It's adapted from a book by Nancy Krikorian about the Armenian genocide. And we had been in contact with Nancy about rights, and it had been adapted, originally devised at Syracuse, and it with just basically tables, chairs, and props. You know, it was like a budget of $100. But we thought, okay, let's bring it to New York. And I never thought that loads of Armenians from Boston and Watertown would find themselves in the audience. And one night, Sarine, who is the producer and really the beating heart of the entire project, Sarine, who was born in Armenia, and she'd said, "Oh, can you come meet someone?" And I said, "Sure." It was after a performance. And I introduced myself, and she said, "This is Carolyn. Carolyn, this is Liam." And I said, "Hi, nice to meet you." And she said, "You know, it's amazing seeing this play because that's my grandmother's story."
Wow.
And I said, "Oh, yeah, I know. Isn't that amazing?" And she said, "No, actually, the character in the book is my grandmother. This is my family's story.
Wow. The personal
Remember
impact.
I
telling
know.
you this.
I just got chills all up.
Yeah.
Personal relevance.
We come from Massachusetts to see her grandmother's story, and she told, you know, because her and the author of the book know each other, and their grandmothers grew up with each other. So I don't know, and
this is around the Armenian genocide, right?
right,
So it wasn't until, correct me if I'm wrong, but the current presidency was the first presidency to formally acknowledge the genocide, you know,
that's
and
correct.
so that is so profound that this story is being told, considering that this is something that the Armenian community has been fighting for decades, to be seen, to be heard, to be understood by global government. So it isn't just, it's so much more than a story. It's their lives that are personally impacted.
Yep.
So to see a story of such profound, I mean, the way you just described it, I literally have chills right now. And knowing that it's not like, it's more than just, you know, the story of someone else, right? It is their lives and their heritage. It's just,
right.
It's powerful.
I vividly remember being in the audience and seeing Zabel, and I was so moved the entire time. And I was completely ignorant to this moment in our history. I had no idea. I had never even heard of something like this happening. And, you know, I guess I'm a woman and I'm a Black woman, and I've been able to relate to a lot of non-majority experiences. And so to like have something highlighted that was so different to me that I had no idea about was it just was so wild in my mind to realize, like, wow, I cannot believe this community has never been heard. And then I was like, you know what? I can understand, because I am a member of communities that have never been heard and that are not listened to. But at least people are aware of the way gap. People are aware of, you know, of absolute rampant racism, you know, but I consider myself a very intelligent person, and I had literally no idea that this had ever happened in history. And I was privileged to go to a great high school and had good education my whole life. And I was so disappointed in myself. And then I had to remember to be compassionate and realize that, everybody has these experiences, and that's why we're here. So as I need to step back for myself and remember, like, this story is being told. This person saw her grandmother's story being shared, not just put on a show, not just a link to a video she could watch. This is something she watched people be moved by. And like that experience is just really irreplaceable, I'm sure, for that woman and for anybody that was in the audience for any of those shows, truthfully. And I hope that moving forward, people, when we have live productions, we can continue to have those really good experiences, and people can have moments like I have, and moments like anybody else in the audience of an Egg and Spoon show should be able to have.
Right. I have a question for you two, because this is what I think about all the time, is what can we do better? I don't know. That's something that dropped in for me during this conversation, but what responsibility do theater organizations have to expand citizenship and equity and making sure people feel heard?
Just off the top of my head, I think immediately about conversations in our board meetings about making shows accessible to everybody, and acknowledging, the privilege of affording a ticket to go see a show that, for someone, $25 might be nothing. They might be willing to pay $100 and donate $75 on top of their ticket price. But some people might have to make a choice between going to see a show and going to work that night, or, any other reason. And so I think that accessibility is something that Egg and Spoon really should, especially as we consider in-person programming again, and we're able to do that soon, which we're so excited about. We really need to consider how we can in the best way possible, provide access to as many people as we can. And, we're a nonprofit. We're not in this to make money. But we also have expenses that we need to meet and that we need to take care of. And so that's where it gets frustrating, is managing that balance. But I think that accessibility has to be an absolute priority, because I don't know that we're going to be able to fully engage with all the communities that we want to expand to and that want to be part of Egg and Spoon's community. Because, a reasonable member of our community doesn't have to be able to afford a ticket, doesn't have to be able to donate $100, doesn't be, a reasonable member of our community doesn't have to look like a certain way to be able to enjoy our art. So I think that a really important way to align with our mission is to make our shows as accessible as possible.
I echo that. I love that idea. It just, you made me sort of think, I'm like, oh, sort of when you're going to buy a ticket, on the website, right? You could also at checkout, right, have another line item. Would you be interested in sponsoring someone else to see the show for an additional X amount of dollars, right? And they can check a box and their credit card information, right? So goes to purchase a ticket for someone else. And then they can also see the show themselves. So you could kind of build that into the user experience. And then they feel good, right? They're enjoying the show themselves, but they're also giving someone else the gift of seeing the show. The other thing that sort of came to mind was just the idea of continuing to grow our partnerships. I think a lot of these stories are there, but they're hidden, right? Because they're happening in small pockets across the nation, across the world, right? We have the privilege of being based in New York, right? It's amazing here, right? The energy, the resources, the people, the community. That's how I heard, right? Being here in New York physically, but what about, the, queer Black kid that, has been writing all the time and is part of his local, Birmingham, Alabama community, right?
And a notebook this big filled with stories that could be hits.
Yes. And he's just looking for a way to find us on social so he can join on Instagram or TikTok or sign up through the website.
Or a YouTube channel.
Or YouTube, right? YouTube, exactly. Whatever the kids are doing these days, right? Yeah, all of it. Snapchat,
crazy kids.
Exactly, YouTube. And I believe that it's the core of who we are to constantly be thinking about that kid, right? That isn't quite in the room. And so so I think there's always opportunity there, to kind of continue to grow that part of the organization.
Right. Oh my God. I love that. And because of this, every in-person or new event we're scheduling, this is at the forefront of our minds. I was talking with Sam, during one of our meetings about, okay, let's decide to give every member of an Indigenous population a free ticket always. And let's hold a percentage of tickets to every performance for Black, Indigenous, or audience members of color. And then that can run out or, be used or not. But this idea also this comes from the almost the Italian idea of a suspended coffee. So in Italy, if you buy a coffee, you can buy, donate one. And then the receipt gets put into a bucket and someone just takes one and gets a free coffee.
I've never heard of this. I'm in love with that.
Isn't it amazing?
Yeah, suspended coffee.
So you just expanded my brain.
But it's so easy.
So when are we going to Italy, guys? Let's go.
Yeah. Finding that receipt bucket.
We'll have to pay it forward, right?
That's right.
Of course,
yeah.
And that's exactly why Egg and Spoon is and will continue to take our very influential position in society so seriously. And this looks like proactive social engagement to us, right? This looks like finding art that we had to go out of our way to find, making sure that we're accessible, proactively engaging with the people of our community. And, yes, we had to halt in-person productions. we hated that. We didn't like how that felt. I vividly remember being on the phone with Liam, and I was like in Florida, right when everything was shutting down. It was really crazy. He was like, what do we do? I'm like, we literally cannot do anything. This is so crazy. And, we had to stop all of that. And it, we had to really stop and pause and think about how Egg and Spoon is going to continue our mission. And that's when we started rethinking our mission. And, it goes back to what you were saying before about how our artists are part of our community, because we had to halt in-person programming, but we leaned into incubation and supported other artists. And we've grown so much through really leaning into this portion of what we could, because we couldn't reach out because a global pandemic stopped us. So we reached in, and we found our community without looking for an audience. We were looking for our people. And that shift, I think, really helped bring really beautiful people into our organization, like Veronica. It helped really bring beautiful art into our organization, like Black Girl Joy. And I'm just so excited to see like where we go. This is awesome.
That's great. Actually, you guys made me think of like one idea that I'm not sure if we've done it in the past, but when it comes to productions, you're talking about engagement, Liam, after, and like, so I at the Tribeca Film Festival, when a movie premieres, like the panelists of actors will come out and spend half an hour sort of answering audience questions. I'm not sure if that's something we've considered or thought about here. I know it's a lot for an artist to do that, right? It depends on the show and the intensity of it and scheduling and all of that. But I was just thinking, is that something you guys have considered? I always thoroughly enjoyed it so much. And I like remember every time I go to Tribeca Film Festival that I'm like, I get so lucky if it's the premiere of it that I get to, ask questions and kind of hear.
Right. Yeah, we've done them before, but I feel like you guys both are inspiring me to almost take it one step further, right? Which is talking with the actors and a community member, or or a member of an organization that's tied to the piece, or something to give to boost other organizations or other communities in the industry that have a tie to the piece or the themes that we're covering.
And also, like, we are a very white organization, and so to be able to connect with community members and say, I want to hear from your voice, not ours. And, like as eloquently as a lot of the staff can speak, in order to hear from someone that you relate to, it really helps if they look like you and they really can understand your experience. So reaching out to community members to be part of a panel like that, I think is such a beautiful idea, because it gets, sometimes a conversation out of some of the same voices we may have heard and into like our actual, communities that we're trying to connect with. And I think that would be a really great idea too.
I second that. I think that's such a wonderful idea, because there's nothing like, also when you're sort of taking in art, right? You're taking it in and you're like, wow, this artist has really portrayed this experience. I can connect with it as a viewer, but then to also connect with someone who has lived it is like even a deeper level of connection. So that person will come out of the theater like twice touched, right? Twice changed, twice impacted, because of the level from the artistic view, but then also the real life experience that they've also heard from.
Think about how impacted we are literally just from hearing Liam's experience at Zabel, hearing a first account. That's my grandmother's story. Think about how just moved we are from secondhand knowledge of his experience, So just seeing how valuable that was to you, and you were, connected to the play so much, and I think to have, be able to have that kind of conversation, I think it would take our little chills that we've had in this conversation and to feel that in a room, that is infectious. That is addictive. And that is Egg and Spoon.
I love it.
Yeah.
Awesome. Wow. What a perfect note to leave off on. Thank you both so much for taking the time and for all that you do for for me, for my mental health, but also for this organization. It means everything, more than you know. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
Of course.
Yes, so happy. Thank you so much.